The diplomatic vessel Meridian's Hope glided through the void between Earth and the Valkyran homeworld, carrying the weight of humanity's first formal alliance with an alien civilization. On board, Jenny Chen sat in the observation deck, watching stars streak past in their relativistic dance. He was 23, a junior xenolinguist who'd somehow ended up on the most important mission in human history. The Valkyrans were unlike anything humanity had expected. Tall, graceful beings with crystalline skin that refracted light into subtle rainbows, they communicated through a combination of auditory tones and bioluminescent patterns. Their princess, Anna, her name translated roughly as Harmony of the Third Moon, had insisted on using human nomenclature for easier communication. Jenny had been studying Valkyran phonetics for 2 years, ever since first contact. He understood perhaps 60% of their basic language, enough to stumble through simple conversations. The princess, however, spoke flawless English, learned through months of intensive study with Earth's linguistic experts. The door to the observation deck whispered open. Jenny turned to see Anna entering, her crystalline form catching the starlight and scattering it across the walls. She moved with an otherworldly grace, each step deliberate and measured. "I hope I am not intruding," she said, her voice carrying that peculiar harmonic quality all Valkyrans possessed. "Not at all, Your Highness," Jenny replied, standing awkwardly. "Please, just Anna." She approached the viewport, her light-refracting skin creating small auroras in the darkness. "I find myself unable to rest. Tomorrow we sign the treaties, and my people's future changes forever." Jenny nodded, understanding the weight she carried. The alliance meant technology sharing, cultural exchange, and mutual defense. It also meant vulnerability, opening their societies to potential exploitation, misunderstanding, or worse. They stood in silence for several minutes, watching the cosmos wheel past. Then, softly, Anna began to hum. The melody was haunting, achingly beautiful. It rose and fell with mathematical precision, each note perfectly placed. Jenny recognized it immediately, not as a Valkyrran composition but as something far more familiar. His breath caught in his throat. Without thinking, he joined in, harmonizing with her melody. His human voice blended with her crystalline tones, creating something neither species could produce alone. Anna froze mid-note. She turned to face him, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in rapid sequences. Shock, confusion, something that might have been fear. "How do you know this?" Her voice was barely a whisper, all diplomatic composure shattered. "Nobody knows this. Not my attendants, not the diplomatic corps, not even my own family knows this exact melody." Jenny's mind raced. Your Highness, I don't understand. That's a human song, from Earth. It's called The River Runs Silver. It's from a folk tradition in the Appalachian region over 300 years old." Anna's crystalline skin flickered with patterns Jenny had never seen before. His training hadn't covered whatever emotion she was displaying now. She moved closer, her movements suddenly lacking their usual grace, almost urgent. "Describe this place, Appalachia." "Mountains," Jenny said slowly. "Old mountains worn down by time, covered in forests. There are rivers running through valleys, and in certain lights the water looks silver. The people there had a rich musical tradition, passed down generation to generation." Anna's hand, 3 elegant fingers that caught and refracted every photon, reached out toward him, then withdrew. "On my world there is a place we call the Singing Valleys, ancient formations where the wind moves through crystalline structures and creates music. This melody, it is not taught, it cannot be taught. It emerges naturally from the land itself when conditions are perfect. Only those who have stood in those exact valleys, at the exact moment when 3 moons align and the seasonal winds blow true, hear this song." Jenny felt the deck beneath his feet suddenly seem unstable. That's impossible. The mathematical odds of 2 completely independent. musical traditions on worlds separated by 400 light-years producing identical melodic structures. Anna finished. Her bioluminescent patterns had settled into something that looked like wonder, astronomically improbable, yet here we are. They stared at each other across the impossible gulf of evolution, biology, and cosmic distance. "How many notes," Jenny asked, "in your version?" 47 measures, Anna replied. "The full song takes 4 minutes and 18 seconds to complete." Jenny pulled out his tablet, his hands shaking slightly as he called up the archival recording from Earth's folk music preservation database. He played it. Anna listened, her entire body seeming to resonate with each note. When it ended, she was silent for a long moment. Then, identical, note for note. The timing varies by perhaps 3 seconds, accounting for different performance styles, but the mathematical relationship between tones is exact. "There has to be an explanation," Jenny said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Convergent evolution of musical aesthetics, some universal mathematical principle that pleasing melodies must follow." Anna shook her head, a gesture she'd learned from humans. "I am not merely a princess, Jenny. My training included xenomusicology, quantum mathematics, and astrobiology. I can calculate orbital mechanics in my head. This is not convergence. The probability distribution is too narrow, the specificity too exact." She moved to the viewport, pressing one crystalline hand against the transparent aluminum. "There is a legend among my people, ancient, dismissed by modern Valkorans as mythology. It speaks of a time before our recorded history when the first Valkorans emerged not from our world, but from the stars themselves. When we were scattered across the darkness, fragments of something greater, slowly coalescing into separate civilizations." Jenny felt a chill run down his spine. "We have similar stories. Ancient astronaut theories, panspermia, myths of sky people, mostly dismissed as pseudoscience or religious metaphor." "What if they are not metaphor?" Anna turned back to him, her patterns now displaying what Jenny had learned to recognize as intense curiosity. "What if, millions of years ago, something or someone seeded the galaxy with the building blocks of consciousness? Not identical life, but templates, mathematical frameworks for how intelligence might structure beauty, meaning, connection. That would mean that the song is older than either of our species, that it is written somehow into the fundamental structure of how our kinds of minds perceive and create meaning." Anna's voice carried an almost reverent quality now. "A song that predates civilization itself, encoded in the very way we experience reality." Jenny's scientific training warred with the profound strangeness of the moment. "Or," he said carefully, "there's a simpler explanation we're missing, some form of ancient contact between our worlds. Perhaps not between our species, but something else, some third party that visited both and taught us the same song." Anna's laugh was like crystal chimes. "That raises more questions than it answers. Why this song? Why teach it at all?" They fell silent again, but it was a different quality of silence now. The gulf between them suddenly seemed both infinitely vast and impossibly narrow. "Tomorrow," Anna said softly, "we sign treaties that will bind our civilizations together. We will share technology, art, knowledge. But tonight, we have discovered that we were already connected by something far older and stranger than politics or trade agreements." Jenny nodded slowly. "What do we do with this information?" Anna's patterns shifted to something that might have been a smile. "We investigate, carefully, scientifically. We search both our histories for similar anomalies. We map the distribution of the song, trace its origins as far back as records permit." She paused. "And perhaps we acknowledge that the universe is far stranger and more interconnected than either of our species had imagined." "The alliance," Jenny began, "becomes more important," Anna interrupted. "If there is something fundamental connecting our peoples, something written into the fabric of how we experience existence, then we are not merely forming a political alliance. We are reuniting something that was once whole." The Meridian's hope continued its journey through the dark, carrying two young people who had stumbled onto a mystery that transcended their diplomatic mission. In the observation deck, as stars wheeled past, they sat together and hummed the ancient song. Human voice and Valkoran crystal harmonized, creating something beautiful and impossible. Neither knew what it meant. Neither understood the implications, but both recognized that the universe had just become infinitely larger and more mysterious than their respective sciences had allowed. And somewhere, in the mathematical structure of reality itself, an ancient pattern resonated with recognition.